So in Operation Health, they brought several just repair operations in place to get the game back to a healthy status, i.e. Operation Health, why they called it that, and why Doc was on the main screen. So during that season, everything was meticulously looked over, reconsidered, sort of from the ground up with the game. They wanted to address issues that had been complained about. Everything from the bright lighting outside to just smaller bug fixes and operator tweaks. They did that and released a few reasonably sized patches during that time. Nothing like a standard mid-season reinforcement, but just little things to kind of make sure the game would be ready moving forward for what they wanted to do with this huge update in Blood Orchid. So what they've taken and done with Blood Orchid is basically the textures, some of the models, the way the models hang on their skeletons, just lighting, basically a top to bottom rework of the game as we know it. I think their biggest problem for me has been just not announcing things like this to put the player base at ease, and then when they take away things from us and also not announcing it, it's just something that I think they should be pretty transparent with. Which leads me to, we will be getting less maps going forward, and I'll touch on that in a minute. Alright, as you can see, we have our two new main operators. Feel free to pause and read anything at any time. Now these are the Hong Kong operators. We have Ying and Legion. I did want to discuss the loadouts of these two as well. See, now this is I believe a light machine gun with her. So another option in that market. An interesting weapon here. Actually reminds me a bit of this other shotgun that Legion's carrying. So it may be a modified... Oh, his is modified to have the internal silence in. Hers appears to have a different silencer or a different barrel. It's interesting. She comes with claymores, smoke grenades, both medium speed operators. He'll have the impact grenade and the deployable shield, which I'm sure that could come in really handy, both of those. His SMG, from what I've seen, is being used quite heavily by some of the better players and to good effect. So I'm thinking this thing's got a really good fire rate mixed with probably just heavy hits right now. So that's the kind of SMGs I love. Oh, their abilities as well. The Candela charge for Ying. These things are awesome. You can charge them for up to 3 seconds and roll them under a door, through a drone hole, a combination of both. You can toss them into the room. You can also plant them like you would a breach. And the timer can be applied in any of those situations. So these are awesome. The toxin mines created by Legion. Now he starts, I believe, just with one. He has some small punji sticks in a toxic canister, basically small darts, and so they're going to be being produced throughout the round. He's essentially kind of putting together how many he will need, but he starts with one because he wants to be ready. You can either place it in advance as kind of a trigger, or even throw it into the fray if you need to. Another nice detail they've added is he can see his gadget as a visible icon when he places it. So it cloaks to the enemy, making it very difficult to see, but you can actually use it as a waypoint to notice when it's triggered and set yourself up for some amazing situations or even wall bangs. So, as you can see, both these new operators are quite strong. Here we have the new Polish operator, Ella. So this is going to be her operator weapons and gadgets. She's got the Scorpion. Looks like it has so far all these weapons, I would say, in this update look like they hit extremely hard. Have very little recoil in terms of how we're used to. Like they do have it, but they're a bit more sturdy and steady, which seems like a lot of weapons are like that at the start. So I see these getting either fire rate nerfs or recoil nerfs, or if they leave them, I'd love to see a few buffs to kind of pepper in on other operators to make it equal out. She has a secondary shotgun, high fire rate, high reload rate, so this thing could be pretty menacing. Sighted pistol, the only operator so far to have one. Barbed wire and impact grenades. Ella's unique ability, inspired by anti-tank Polish grenades. However, these are non-lethal, and they're used to isolate targets and to sabotage. So basically, it's a concussion mine. It's a sort of a flash style concussion, like you'd expect. You can plant them like basically like a smoke grenade. They toss out, they stick. You can pick them back up. So just another way to kind of stun an opponent and have a pretty high chance of doing so and protect objectives or set yourself up for some pretty interesting takedowns, I'm sure. Okay, so this is a very large kind of dossier they've put together, really focusing on Ella. I'm assuming they did this because I guess just didn't get that season, and they're trying to flavor a bit more backstory into the game. I mean, the character descriptions are actually quite good if you read their bios, and especially if you just pay attention to the weird details they put in there. It just kind of adds something to the characters. We have Ying and Legion. I'll go ahead and showcase what we know about the new map. This will give you a great look of that map. Now, I've played this map a few times in the technical test server, and there's several opportunities and several twists and turns in this map that allow for just scenarios where you aren't even sure where you should be checking. So this is going to be a map where map knowledge is probably the most important that we've seen on any map, which is actually pretty cool. Alright, these are the new weapon skins for this season. If you're not familiar, weapon skins actually disappear at the end of the season, so buy these while they're hot once this drops. Basically, any you get, you keep. Any you don't get are no longer available. One of the only items in the game like this, unless they've changed that moving forward. Now we're going to settle back into the main updates. Now these do get very heavy-handed, so I would suggest going through the patch notes yourself if you want to look through the little details, and I tell you now there are a great deal of them, especially in the fixes and bug fixes area. So we're going to see new upgraded servers being deployed, improved lighting when looking from inside and outside, and vice versa, basically just balancing out the non-blinding effects or the non-deep dark space effects. So that's excellent. As you can see, now it makes sense if you were looking into the next room, and I mean, you would be able to see, same as if I was looking out this cutaway, I would be able to see plain as day that there's a wall and everything there, whereas here, that's not entirely the case. Sky model update. No longer being rendered in-game just to be a static-y background version of the same thing every time anyway. Now they've put that in place. They've mapped it in the game in a way that actually may even look more realistic, which again is pretty awesome. So we're getting just added realism to even the lighting. So they're really focusing on the details in this update. And between what they're adding and the new map, I think we all have a lot of reason to be excited. So this is where I mentioned there's going to be some retexturing, even meshing. In some areas I am a little disappointed, like that they're taking away some of the extra added detail, but in some ways they're adding some and streamlining, so it's probably more of a redesign choice in some of the elements. Overall, for the most part, the lighting and the texturing does seem to register a bit sharper and clear, and therefore more realistic. So I think they're on the right track. As you can see here, comparing the scarf, it doesn't look the worst, but by comparison here, that looks more like fabric. The proper gloss and reflections being just, again, sharper, but not in a way that's pixely or anything, just a clearer, more defined look. So again, just a lot better, as we can see here on the texturing, and yet it's supposed to be to an extent where they have done it where we're going to get lower memory usage and things on these maps. So I mean, just little fine detail things like this that they've been going on and working on and thinking about and having a plan for. Here we've got face rigging cleanup, better facial reactions, and my god, better faces by far. Are you kidding me? Would bang, would not bang. Hibana's gadget will now be more consistent. Gotta love that. Following patch sizes. Hit reg and high ping. This one's a little controversial. Hit reg, great. Always be working on that, I say, for the most part. High ping, this is where it's good or bad either way. Essentially, this is saying it would favor players with more stable connections, which is fair, but it's going to be hurting the people who are struggling on their connections. And then if it was vice versa, if it was to give favor and advantage to the people with less stable connections, then that would be what you hear people griping about a lot already. So maybe it's just to counter that gripe, but I don't know. We'll see. It's all going to be in how it plays out and how the game feels. This is describing a lot of the changes that were initiated through Operation Health. This is kind of what it was about. So game health, player comfort, changing it up, game balancing. This is another little controversial thing, though, that we still have to go over. So, ranked. Concentrated down to 9 maps now. And it's going to focus more on the maps that the pro players and pro league are using during that season. This is what they will be using. That's what's available for you to do in ranked and for them to do in ranked. This one is a little more upsetting. Casual playlist apparently is going to be reduced to 15, which is still a lot of maps. Not bad. But we're going to be seeing maps actually fall off and go away. Not to say that they could never bring them back, but in favor of adding new maps and not having too many, this is something they're going to employ, and I hadn't realized that was going to be an issue this soon, so I was kind of excited to get to somewhere around 20 maps, and we'll see if this stays fresh and stays interesting. I hope it does. Alright, so these are some kind of important changes here with game balancing. The barbed wire is going to be easier to get through, only slightly. It's going to take one less hit to break, though, when you want to just get rid of it. So that will affect things a little bit. The Jackal Hunter mark will ping the location more frequently for 20 seconds every 5 seconds instead of 30 seconds for every 10 seconds. So I think that will be kind of better in terms of how I think Jackal was meant to be used. I think it will be kind of better in terms of how you can defend Jackal, because you know he's probably going to be advancing on you a bit more quickly now, and you'll be aware of it. But at the same time, that is going to create what I just said, and he will be, you know, a lot to deal with, whether he's in the hands of a great Jackal player or a just good one. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. This I'm not too happy with, but I guess we gotta live with it. Drones are now one-shotted again by bandits' battery traps. So no chance to escape when it's just starting to affect your drone, which was pretty cool. It's just zap, pop, done. The fuse cluster charge pathing is going to be more predictable. That's probably a smart idea. I mean, I like how they did bounce around, but with the things they hit already, it would cause situations where it could bounce 2 rooms away, which was kind of cool, but it made his gadget a bit not only unpredictable, but a bit overpowered in certain situations where you get free kills when someone might not even be very close to where your fuse is detonating. So shooting in a Blackbeard shield doesn't trigger hit markers anymore. That's another thing. They've apparently removed the hit marker entirely for moving your cursor over an opponent. So something else we'll have to get used to and never rely on, but with the better lighting. Again, I think they're kind of on the right track here. Every drone can aim up a little easier. Very important for Twitch, which can hit our high cameras without having to be at that perfect angle now. And a great, I will think, for regular drones being able to get in some interesting new places, perhaps. Okay, yes, the thermal scope has been reworked a bit. You are able to see blood splatter come out when you hit someone, so you know for sure you hit them, which actually does help a lot in what I've seen so far. He has the option for a muzzle brake, which can help with the higher recoil that you've been seeing with follow-up shots, which is awesome. Brings them back around. He can now 3-shot and open trap doors. And his smoke, and actually every operator's smoke, has been affected to be thicker, denser, last longer, and instead of being rendered independently for each game, it'll be consistent, so everyone will see the same amount of smoke. And now with the newer, thicker volume, this should guarantee smoke's being used more how people would have planned to have, which is, I think, going to be good for the game and how that plays out. Sledge's hammer is more consistent. I'm assuming that would be with some of the problems you'll have, like where instead of breaking a window, he'll just literally break the glass off the window and that's it, or smack a wall and knock out the front part of the plaster and just not through all the way. So hopefully that's what they're referring to. Alright, now this is where I would suggest going ahead and sitting down and having a nice long read. Tons of fixes have been added. So you can see this is a pretty huge update, and with 3 new operators to play, I think we're looking at a pretty fun season. But I want to know what you guys think. Go ahead and tell me in the comments what you're excited for, what you think they've changed that maybe they shouldn't have, or that they've changed that might improve how the game works from now on. Just tell me your thoughts down in the comments. Give a like to the video and subscribe if you like what you see.